Good afternoon and welcome to tomorrow's Tropics for the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. Please note, I'm not a meteorologist and this forecast is completely unofficial, and for any decision making you happen to be doing during the season, please consult the National Hurricane Center or your local officials. So I am forecasting 17 to 20 named storms, 9 to 11 hurricanes, 3 to 5 major hurricanes, and an accumulated cyclone energy index of 135 to 175 points. So let's look into the factors that are going into this forecast. So first up, let's look at sea surface temperatures. It doesn't really look all that typical here. You have a large band of above normal sea surface temperatures in the subtropic, or confined mainly to subtropics here. Also, a band of warmer water between Brazil and the African coast. In between that, you have nearer to below normal anomalies in the main development region. And this is actually the main source of uncertainty in my forecast that's keeping me from going higher with this, because there is a chance that it does not warm up, and that would really suppress a lot of instability here and take the numbers down. But it is likely that it will warm based on a couple of factors alone within this sea surface temperature, or within sea surface temperatures looking here now. First off, you have the warmer normal far eastern subtropical Atlantic, and that suggests that the Canary Current that comes down here and tends to deposit cooler waters off the African coast is weaker than normal. So that means you're going to get a weaker northeasterly current that cools down the eastern main development region. And that is correlated with above average hurricane seasons. So likely due to that, it will warm at least some. And this blob of warm water is actually being sustained right now by weaker than normal trade winds. And as the intertropical convergence zone and the monsoon trough move to the north, this will likely move a bit to the north along with it, and you'll have this come into the main development region and warm it up. And also conditions with the West African monsoon suggest that we're going to see the main development region warm up in a similar manner to 2018 and 2019. So it is likely we will see this region warm, but there's also uncertainty into what the rest of this area is going to do, because if this region persists, even if we do have significant warming in the main development region, you might see this rob a bit of instability from the tropics, and that would also suppress the season potentially in the tropics at least. So we'll have to watch how this behaves and whether it goes away or gets stronger, just persists. But this is definitely the main uncertainty here to see between just a garden variety active season and potentially hyperactive season. Next up, let's look at the ENSO phase. And this phase is actually it's quite uncertain early in the season because of the spring predictability barrier. But in fact, this season, there's been unusually high confidence that we are transitioning to a negative ENSO phase or La Nina. And this favors more active seasons than usual. And as you can see, there's already a cool tongue that's popping up, even though this is only May, and it's gotten even stronger towards the end of May. But given this is averaged over a month, it kind of takes away some of the oscillations, but it also takes away some of the trends like this. And you can see why it's here. This upwelling Kelvin wave that was in the Western Pacific in February has been able to move to the east, eventually surfacing a few months after it was actually formed that far west. And this is along with the atmospheric conditions that are also supporting La Nina. I mean, it's likely that we will have a La Nina or at least cool neutral ENSO for the peak of the hurricane season, and that means you're going to have less rising air in the Pacific, and or even subsidence in the Pacific, in parts of it at least, and that means you have less subsides as a result of Pacific convection in the main development region. So we have more rising air here, and since there's less convection and typically fewer tropical cyclones off the equator, that means you'll have less shear coming into the Atlantic tropics. So these are two reasons: uh, more rising air and less shear, that you are going to see more likely the ENSO phase actually enhance uh, the Atlantic season. And also, in addition, that means that the main development region can actually warm because it is warmer than this region in general. And next, let's look at how the West African monsoon looks to be shaping up, and indeed it looks that's slated for yet another season of being more active than usual in North Africa here. You can see the precipitable water in general, it's way above average in pretty much all of North Africa, even in the Sahara. And but this is especially apparent in the Sahel region, which is where you have a lot of those tropical waves trek through over Africa before they actually get to the Atlantic Ocean. And you can see as much above normal, so that is correlated with above average hurricane seasons, as this supports stronger tropical waves coming off into the Atlantic. And that means there's less to do before they can develop into tropical cyclones. And you can also see it's much drier than normal to the south, and that suggests there's a dipole here. That means the north is very uh, is much more active here, and that means you're going to have usual general tropical waves and activity a bit more north than usual due to this dipole. Also, let's take a look at the 700 millibar zonal wind anomaly. So basically, the positive anomalies here mean that the wind is more west than normal, and the negative anomalies means it's more east than normal. So here you can see it's pretty striking. There's another dipole type thing here, and that means you have much more west than normal wind coming into Africa uh, in the southern main development region to the south of it. But to the north, that you see anomalously easterly winds. So you can see what's going on here. This is anomalous cyclonic flow. And while you're probably not going to see waves come in the middle of this, that is actually also favorable because the gradient is maximum gradient's a bit to the south. And if you have a tropical wave track through this region, this actually means that you have it tilted to the east and the north, tilted to the west and the south. So that means that it's even closer to closing it off, just because it's a lot easier to close off a circulation when there's a lot of background vorticity. So it doesn't take as much vorticity with a wave to actually close off a tropical cyclone. So this is favorable for tropical cyclones forming in the eastern Atlantic, which means they can have a long track through the Atlantic, and that pumps up especially the cumulative cyclone energy index. So that means usually you have most of the active seasons happen with something like this, where you have a westerly wind here, and generally cyclonic winds, but especially with this weaker than normal easterly wind here. And finally, let's look at the zonal wind anomaly near the surface for the entire Atlantic. So again, this kind of makes the sea surface temperature anomalies make a little more sense. In the subtropics near the actual tropics, where you still have trade winds, there is a lot more westerly flow where that warm water is, and you also have westerly flow where that warm water to the south of the main development region is. So, and then in the middle here, you have slightly stronger trade winds relative to these areas. So this explains why the main development region has cooled off a bit, because it is in an area with this stronger normal trade wind. But again, as features move north for the summer, this will move north as well, and you'll have the cyclonic flow from this also still be there, and but also you'll have the trade winds start to weaken, so that is also likely to warm the sea surface temperatures in the tropics, and so that is another factor into why it is likely that we'll see this end up warming, and why even though it is slightly actually below normal from 60 west to 20 west, from 10 to 20 degrees north, uh, but even then it looks like it will warm up and produce a pretty active season, at least at this point. But no matter what, even if it's completely dead or totally hyperactive, it just takes one storm to in your area to make it a bad season for you and your neighbors. So no matter the forecast, always be prepared and uh, prepare for the worst, and hope for the best. And if you have any questions or comments about this, please let me know, and thank you for watching.